Welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV, where we are here back with Kyle and the others to do the second part of our investigation. Namely, trying to figure out what to do, what happened at Sharlayan. I still don't understand how the vote could be unanimous. What could possibly convince them all to turn their backs on Eorzea? If a forum is intent on concealing its intentions, then a cursory investigation will avail us little, I suspect. We will need to dig deeper, and with the greatest of care. The process by which forum members are elected is fair and equitable. Neither wealth nor social standing offers any advantages to a prospective candidate. But fairly elected or not, Master Matoya still found them all to be insufferable. Our tour of the city was a pleasant distraction. I feel more than ready now to tackle the challenges of the day. Hitting the books. An unsettling change has come over Sharlayan, but together we will divine the underlying cause for the forum's callousness. As I mentioned before, however, questioning the councillors directly is a fruitless endeavor. They seem to have already come to a consensus as to what and how little they are willing to divulge. Which is why I began scouring Sharlayan's archives of historical records for any hint of a connection to the final days. Suffice to say that progress has been slow. There are only so many dusty pages one can skim a day. But now that I have this band of willing reinforcements, the search should proceed all the swifter. Then let's reconvene outside Numenon, shall we? Exit the annex to the right, and you'll find the archives on the western edge of the woods. My directions were easy enough to follow, I hope. In any case, you stand now before the doors of Numenon, Sharlayan's grandest collection of books and tomes. This building is actually only an entrance, and one of many at that, for the archives of Numenon extend deep beneath the surface, like the roots of a tree. The vast halls of the Great Google Library pale in comparison to Numenon's endless maze of subterranean chambers. Any citizen of Sharlayan is free to enter and peruse its shelves. Well, most of its shelves. Only Archons are afforded access to certain restricted vaults. I've dispatched Y'shtola and Raha to investigate those. Meanwhile, Alize and Alphino will help me continue my search through the stacks open to the general public. Your status presents more of a problem. As a non-citizen, you're only permitted to browse the first floor here at the entrance. Even so, there should be a number of books which touch upon Sharlayan history or foreign policy. Your task will be to find and study the relevant publications. I promise you, a working knowledge of those subjects will make it far easier to spot the sort of clues we are looking for. Let us be about it, shall we? I've told the others to meet us at the stone benches over there once they've found some promising tomes. Happy reading! Both them. So, what do we have? Brightly colored book. The title on the spine reads, The Story of Sharlayan. Read? Long, long ago, on an island in the northern sea, there lived a Roganin man by the name of Nyunkrepf. Nyunkrepf was a student of astrology, and he divined that a flood of terrifying proportions would soon sweep over the lands of Eorzea. So it was that he built a gigantic ship, assembled a crew, and set sail for that imperiled realm. The flood arrived as foretold, and to their horror, the strangely churning waters drove the people toward the ocean. It was there, however, that Nyunkrepf's crew hauled them aboard his ark. But the danger had not passed. A towering wave approached, threatening to smash the vessel to pieces. With only moments to spare, Nyunkrepf wove a mighty spell of teleportation and shifted the entire ship to safety atop Abalafia's spine. Refugees from the surrounding regions huddled there alongside them, But it was not long before disputes over dwindling supplies of food led to violence and bloodshed. Saddened by the sight, Nunkrep gathered to him his crew and his grateful passengers and abandoned the Ark to rose-reddened peaks. They journeyed to the coast, where they built a new ship, intent upon returning to the Northern Sea. They landed on the beach of an island and settled upon that very spot. The settlement prospered and grew, and in time it became the city of Sharlayan we live in to this day. Red-covered book. The title on the spine reads Roads of Old, The Colony. Many years ago, on the banks of a Faliak in the Dravanian hinterlands, a Sharlayan colony once thrived. This settlement was originally established as a mere outpost to study the ethereal sea in the year 1311 of the 6th Astral Era. Scholars dispatched to Eorzea found the facilities wanting, and their demands encouraged a gradual expansion in structures and services. As rumors spread of a growing community of academics, the area was further inundated with Eorzean students hoping to share in the renowned wisdom of the Sharlayans. 50 years later, the Forum passed a motion to recognize what had become a flourishing town as an official Sharlayan colony. Eorzean residents took to calling the colony itself Sharlayan, which led to no small amount of confusion when discussions turned to the subject of a motherland. In response, some Sharlayan inhabitants, if pressed for a name, would simply refer to it as Emporium. Following the exodus, however, goblins and treasure hunters claimed for themselves a corner of the abandoned colony and gave it yet another name, Idleshire. The following chapters go on to introduce the most prominent features of Idleshire. This book does not appear to contain additional information of the Forum, or cover the history of a Sharlayan motherland in greater detail. Leatherbound Tome. A voice of a growing city. In the years which followed the founding of Sharlayan, civic policy and other matters of import were decided at the Ecclesia, a public forum at which every citizen was eligible to speak. As the city's population grew, however, this format became increasingly impractical. The large number of participants gave rise to ever longer debates, resulting in a significant delay of vital resolutions. Various measures were introduced in an attempt to curtail protracted discussions, but in the year 201 of the 6th Astral Era, it was ultimately decreed that Sharlayan would transition to a new form of governance. The nation would now be led by a body of 99 members, citizens chosen from amongst their peers by means of a nationwide vote. Thus was the Forum as we know it today conceived and created. Blue-covered book. An introduction to the heavens. Probably not relevant, but... Have you ever gazed at the skies above and contemplated the mysteries contained therein? I speak not of shifting cloud pennants, but of a vastness beyond. Of the sun and the twinkling tapestry of the night. Some think the dome above us to be a finite space, yet amongst the leading thinkers of our age, one scholar's depiction of a boundless sea of stars has firmly taken root. Alas, this heavenly sea remains an unreachable, unknowable destination. There are few indeed who can explain in satisfactory detail why our own star is believed to revolve around the sun. It was the technologists of Alak who came closest to understanding the laws which govern that starry abyss. It was they who launched Dalamut and sought to expand beyond our earthbound existence. Having read of their ancient ambitions, I wonder, has your interest in this field of study waxed or waned? What if I were to tell you that the eternal constellations were arranged differently in the distant past, that their positions continue to shift almost imperceptibly, but measurably as we journey into the future? Would it shock you to learn that the stars drift further and further apart, and may indeed do so forever? Are you eager to learn more? The book is on the wrong subject. Search for works which contain details on the Forum, or mentioning of the history of Sharlayan. The title on the spine reads, Forever 20 Summers. Read the book. My beloved seekers of knowledge, have you ever put learning before your health and neglected to feed and rest your body as you should? I too once engaged in such foolish practices, but one night, engrossed in philosophical study, I had an epiphany. For all the world's mysteries that drive us to reckless abandon, we have so very few years of life in which to achieve our goals. Thus do I share with you this mantra. I am forever 20 summers young. The number itself is unimportant. You could be 19 or 23 or 40. Whatever age you are when you discover this manual, let that be the age you aspire to remain. Through mindful, healthy living, will you extend the time available to spend upon your chosen research. Another day, another moon, another summer to grasp the greater truths you pursue. In the pages that follow, we will explore the secrets of maintaining one's physical condition from a biological, etheriological, and arcane viewpoint. Wrong subject. Stewards of Wisdom. During the chaos of the Sixth Umbral Calamity, Archon Neonkrep, founder of Sharlayan, bore witness to the madness and savagery of man brought to the brink of despair. Upon raising a settlement on an island in the northern Empty, he instructed his people thus: Renounce the ways of war, and pursue enlightenment through knowledge and reason. The Sharlayans took to heart the words of their savior, and thenceforth served as stewards of wisdom. Upon the foundation of accumulated learning, they built a homeland unlike any other, a nation born from strength of minds rather than strength of arms. With knowledge of economics came shrewd trading. With knowledge of agriculture came bountiful crops. Engineering brought wells, sewers, ending squabbles over water. Wealth of expertise could be bartered for wealth and coin, and the more the wisdom spread throughout the world, the more mankind as a whole would thrive. And so it was that no matter the trials and tribulations of the age, the citizens of Sharlayan would live by their founder's teachings. For the sake of a better tomorrow, for the sake of a brighter star, they would eschew the tools of war and with knowledge deliver the world. You have gained a fundamental understanding of Sharlayan history and the foundation of the forum. Head outside to the rendezvous point and await your companions. Sorry, were you waiting long? I wanted to make sure I'd borrowed at least a few promising volumes. Avenant Cry should also be along shortly. I was delayed in similar fashion. As far as I could see, no titles in the Archon's text mention a final day specifically, so we have no choice but to start with the tangentially relevant tomes, if they're even that. At present, the plan is to skim through as quickly as we dare and share our discoveries as we make them. It would also be nice to invite everyone to the estate. Plenty of comfortable places to read, and a ready supply of hot tea. Oh, I was always fond of reading outside. But it's not about the little pleasures, is it? You miss your home. It's been difficult. After our arrival, we managed to speak with one of the family's servants and ask how things were. It seems our dear father has instructed the staff that even if Alvino and I were to return to Sharlayan, we were not allowed across the threshold. A harsh measure, indeed. I hope that our efforts to understand his position, and that of the forum, will perhaps lead to a reconciliation. We meant this rift one day, I'm certain of it. What of you, Graha? Have you been to visit your family? Or do they not live here in the city? Well, my situation is also somewhat complicated. I was raised in Sharlayan, yes, but I was born rather further away. In the southern reaches of Ilsabad, in fact. For generations my people have dwelt in Corvos, a coastal region opposite the island of Fafnir. The Alagans founded a city in the fertile land and by ship brought in the subjugated tribes of the Mikote to serve as laborers. Of course, the massive earthquakes of the fourth annual calamity brought an end to the Empire's reign, and when the fifth calamity froze the sea solid, many of the tribes still living in Corvos braved the journey back to Eorzea. My ancestors, however, chose to remain that they might prevent the remnants of Alagan technology from being misused. Isn't Corvos under Gallian rule? For the past 50 years, yes. Some semblance of local culture remains, as is the case for most imperial provinces, but Garlemald renamed the region Locus Ammonius. When I was a boy, a nearby town came under the jurisdiction of an illustrious imperial family, the nobles of House Darnus. House Darnus demonstrated a singular interest in Alagan civilization, and so my tribe was forced to consider a plan of action. For some time already, voices had been raised in favor of abandoning our ancient customs. After all, the Alagan Eye no longer passed to our eldest children as reliable as it once had. Fear of discovery eventually tipped the scales, and the decision was made to bury our ties to the knowledge and tradition of Alag. As the last child born with the Alagan Eye, I was given over to the custody of friends and the students of Bardessian, who had registered me as a Sharlayan citizen. I never even considered... forgive me, it was an unkind question. Even Thankful was taken in by Archon Louiswa, was he not? Studies of adopted waifs and rescued orphans are more common amongst Sharlayans than you might think. Yet, regardless of our origins, we are all provided with an equal opportunity to learn, and with sufficient perspicacity, the outsiders can even earn the vaunted title of Archon. This is exactly why I have such love for this country, and why I wish it to remain a nation of which its citizens can be proud. Yeah, another good reason to get to the bottom of a foreign stubbornness, aside from the trifling matter of our impending doom. Excuses while we try to make some headway in these books, does we? More company should be arriving any moment now. What else do I know of Corvos? Precious little, I'm afraid. I have not returned since Master Gallo first brought me here. I can tell you that Corvosi rebels still seek to slip the yoke of their imperial masters, though the fighting is far less fierce than it once was. Oh, and they have carpets, flying carpets. The legends are quite extraordinary. There are others better suited to poring over old history books, so I thought I'd try my luck with more recent events. If I can't find anything to better inform the forum's baffling behavior. I wonder if they actually have flying carpets or if that's just a legend. We have returned with our selection. Although I must say the pickings were quite slim indeed. Mr. Squire has already flicked through every history book devoted to disasters, and more than a few which barely made mention of them. As such, we'll be looking into research papers on the Umbral calamities, as well as articles written by prominent forum members. Perhaps their knowledge of the final days comes from an unexpected source. Speaking of which, might I ask you a few questions related to the final days? I'm the only one here who didn't witness the events in Amarod firsthand, and I fear I may be overlooking critical details. My thanks. Now, where to begin? First things first. What kind of phenomena did the ancients encounter as the final days grew nigh? A complete destabilization of creation magics. Yes, the unfolding catastrophe wrought havoc on all manner of life. The chaos extended to the ancients themselves, causing their powers of creation to spiral out of control. Fear and despair manifested in terrible, tangible fashion. Meteors raining from the sky, fire erupting from the ground, indescribable abominations prowling the streets. That more or less aligns with my understanding. If only the arts of creation had survived into the present day, we might have something substantial to analyze. To the best of our knowledge, however, those techniques are not preserved or passed on. Y'shtola surmises that the closest known magic is that of summoning, which was promulgated by the Astians. Was there aught else of note which heralded the approach of the final days? They say it began with a keening sound from the land itself. Ah yes, the Amarotines spoke of it, didn't they? We never did hear the sound ourselves, of course, thrust as we were into the midst of a madness. But it seems that each and every one of the catastrophes that was preceded by this ominous noise. Eventually it resounded all across the star, and not even Amarot was spared. So the ground was crying out, you say? To be considered the harbinger of doom, it must have been quite distinct and probably quite loud. I'll have to speak with one of Newman's mammons and ask after any books which make mention of such a sound. Last but not least, would you describe how the ancients sought to quell this unprecedented calamity? What definitive action did they take? They summoned Zodiac. Yes, with Elidibus serving as his heart. So many gave themselves in sacrifice to bring him into being. We do not know exactly how Zodiac brought salvation to the star, only that by his godlike will, were the laws of nature set aright. Then, once the balance was redressed, the ancients offered up a further sacrifice to heal the ravages of the final days. Life sprouted anew, and it was these fledgling souls they intended to render unto Zodiac. A trait that would have allowed them to resurrect the shades of loved ones absorbed by the primal. Or might have, had the now their followers not manifested their opposition in the form of Hydaelyn. Thank you, both of you, for the detailed review. I feel much more confident now in my understanding of the events. With all that freshly in mind, it does make me wonder what the Telophori truly meant when they speak of bringing back the final days. We've seen what they're doing with those towers of theirs. Is forcing people to summon primals a kind of a catalyst? Are they attempting to mirror the conditions caused by unstable creation magics? Or are they simply using the final days as a figure of speech? A convenient metaphor for the scale of destruction they plan to unleash? But I'll just pointless conjecture at this stage. Let us return to our attention to the form, shall we? We should keep an eye out for Y'shtola, but 'tis time we began studying these research papers. Many forum members are also research and professors. If they know aught of the final days, then that knowledge might surface in their writing. That is my hope anyway. It really is comforting to have all these dedicated assistants on hand. Right then, enough chatting, more reading. I'm the last, am I? Well, my extended search of the Archon stacks produced one or two possibly useful books, but I wouldn't get our hopes up. If you recall, Urianger learned of the source's reflections from the Gerun oracles. For its potential to cause panic and confusion, that tome was deemed apocrypha and sealed away in the Great Google Library. It's even less likely that knowledge of the unstandard world, not to mention the horrors of our final days, would be left sitting on a shelf for any curious scholar to find. It stands to reason then that my colleagues, be they archons or counselors, should perforce be largely ignorant of the subject. Yet when you confronted Master Fortuno with knowledge of the Telophora and their machinations, he scoffed at the suggestion that they posed a threat. He seemed adamant that the forum would know if the final days were truly upon us. Which only supports the conclusion that whatever privileged wisdom is guiding the forum's behavior is being kept secret from the rest of the nation. Not that I mean to excuse myself from reading UD. Whether they contain mention of the final days or no, these books could yet hold something of value. You weren't thinking of leaving, were you? There's plenty of work for everyone. Okay, let's get reading. And Quile thought that was funny. You labor what feels like an age as the Stoller's research assistant. Your efforts to gain Garatia's attention go unnoticed. He appears to be lost in his reading. I found naught of interest so far. I think Stoller might be right about not getting our hopes up. Thank you for your help, but I think I can manage the rest without your assistance. If I were you, I'd still have a few quiet moments for myself. Oh dear, you look exhausted. But what of your studies? Were you able to find any books on the subject I mentioned? I did. Then the day was well spent. Should you wish to read them again, a mammoth at the reference desk will point you in the right direction. For the moment though, I suggest you take a well-earned rest. We might be occupied with our research for quite some time. Alright, but I think I end this episode here, and next time we continue apparently going with Alice somewhere. Good, until then, I'm Ace, and don't get lost.